Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years. Hi, welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community. I'm Mary Kate Karr-Petras, and I am here today with Quilters Newsletter's senior designer, Kathryn Wright. Hi, Kath.
Hi.
You're not a stranger to our set, but you're not here very often, so it's always fun to drag you on and talk to you. Mm-hmm. Today we're doing the first of 4 episodes about this quilt that's hanging on the design wall behind you, which is one that you designed, right?
Yes, it is.
Tell us a little bit about the quilt and where we first saw it.
Well, I designed it a few years ago for one of the Quilt It for Kids, and
it was one of our special issues a few years ago. Was the series Quilt It.
And I thought it would be cute to take the zodiac, Chinese zodiac animals, and do them in a baby size. So I came up with that, and that happened to be the year of the ox. So
hence,
yes, hence the name. So
this was the let's take a look at the pattern. So this was a pattern that you reminded us of when we were planning our Best Kids Quilts 2015 special issue, which is coming out at the end of April. And we were thinking about maybe repurposing it in some way, shape, or form, and that didn't happen for this particular issue, but we already had the mindset of kids' quilts. We don't get to work on kids' quilts or projects very often, and we thought it would be fun to each do a staff project. Each member of the staff do her own project using these shapes, because you did such a wonderful job with these appliques and drawing them, because this is your original artwork.
That's right.
Yes. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. So how to take applique shapes that you might see in a quilt pattern and how to adapt them for your own use. And this is why we're here. So let's take a look at the projects that you brought.
Okay.
To repurpose.
Well, I thought it would be fun to use one of the appliques as the hood on one of these little hooded towel projects. And I chose the rabbit because I was wanting to use something that would actually extend outside the edges of the hood. I just thought that would be fun, and it would be a good way to use some of these designs. So I started working with the rabbit as my idea, and I needed to figure out how to make these little ears actually extend. So I'll show you.
Sure.
So that was the starting place, and in order to come up with the right place to sew this on and do it without sewing close the hood part at the same time, I made a measurement on the hood, and it ended up being an 8 by 16-inch piece.
That you cut this from a towel that you bought. You didn't buy terry cloth fabric.
Right.
I
bought towels. I bought a bath towel that I used for the rest of the body of the hooded towel, and I used just a half of a hand towel, a portion cut from a half of a hand towel for the hood, and pinned one edge of it so that I could determine placement on the rabbit. So first I traced from the original pattern.
Bring that in.
I traced two of the rabbits, the head, and went ahead and on one side of one of them, the right side of one of them, I fused on the earpieces and the eyes.
Now, really quick, this is without seam allowances. This motif. So you added.
I added seam allowances, and I'd suggest what I ended up doing too was to trace right on the seam line that you're going to later sew on. Because the seam allowance, you're naturally going to trim that off, but I didn't want to lose the shape, the overall shape of the rabbit. So I traced that line and sewed right on the line, and
so
that really
you could kind of rough cut your seam allowance.
And that's what I did. It seemed to work a lot better for me. So I'd made 2 copies of it. One was plain, and I sandwiched them, sewed around, and then turned it so that that's faced, and cut through the back, which will disappear. It'll be sewn in.
Right.
That gave me the overall shape so that I could then work with how the placement was going to work on the hood. And on the hood, I did all that pinning and turning and measuring, then placed this so that I could make a pin mark on both of the ears and go in and do my stitching just to the point of where my pin mark was, separate from the hood.
Okay.
So I did that on the rabbit face, stitched around that part only. Then I could open the hood back up and make it flat so that I
Take
could
out those pins.
take the pins out so I could then stitch around all of the fused details, put the little nose and mouth on, and start my stitching at the outside edge and all the way around and at the top, and do my stitching to complete the hooded part.
Fantastic.
So then once I got all of the detail work on the hood, I was able to fold it and complete the hood seam. And I actually ended up zigzagging the edges of that seam in order to keep it from shredding. There wasn't a really good way to do it otherwise. So at the very point, I actually zigzagged them together. Then I separated that so that I could keep that as a flat seam.
Which is nice that the child using it appreciates that attention to detail.
Yeah, it just seemed to work better that way. And I had kept the edging on the hand towel at the bottom edge of it.
You can see that here. You just maintained the way that you bought it.
I kept that in so that there would actually be a nice finish on the inside edge when I sewed that and attached it to the 30 by 30 piece. And that, of course, first I had to cut the square off, or the triangle off of that 30 by 30 piece that would be replaced by the hood. So I sewed the hood to the overall piece of towel, and then I was able to do a flat felt seam and seam that edge down, and it's a finished edge again.
It looks beautiful. It looks totally professional.
It's kind of nice finishing way. And then otherwise, I was able then to cut my binding and attach it the normal way. I did attach both the front and the back of the binding by machine. Typically, I would do hand binding, but this is a lot sturdier for a child.
Plus, I don't even know how would you whip stitch
through terry and everything else, right? I had some, Actually, I started with a narrower binding, my normal binding, and had to rip that out after about 4 or 5 inches because I could tell right away it was not going to work.
So you cut these strips how wide?
So these are at 2.5.
Whereas you normally do 2 1/4?
Yes.
Okay. Makes a difference.
So then I bound it, and I was able to do it just a continue, even though there's a slight angle where the towel meets the hood. It worked out fine. I didn't have to miter that or anything. So
it's beautiful, and I love the polka dot. You can never have too many polka dots in your stash.
That's kind of how I feel. I have lots of polka dots, so it was fun to go with that motif and find a colored towel that would actually work with that as well.
It's adorable because the thing is, these towels that you can buy, they come in a fairly standard size. It's nice to have that flexibility where you can make one that's bigger because they outgrow them so quickly. And then you have to put them in real towels. And this is just too cute. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. And you have one other project that you
and just
brought?
a sort of an example of the versatility of these motifs. I also started working on a project that I thought would just be fun to do, a real sort of whole cloth kind of quick throw baby quilt, whatever. And I only have the top partway done, but I wanted to show that in this case, I enlarged the monkey motif by 150%. And it makes then a really nice sized single motif to work with. Again, I just did, in this case, I did turn edge applique, did buttonhole stitch, and did my whole circle and motif separate from the backing, and then just did buttonhole stitch to hold it to the quilt top, and added a couple other circular shapes, and eventually I will do just some real minimal quilting and bind it, and there you have a real quick, fun throw.
But and really elegant. I mean, it could be a baby quilt, but there's nothing to say that, you know, us grown-ups don't love these.
No, my husband likes this really well.
Sure, I'm sure. And with how many animals, you know, with 12 animals, you can.
Right, you could go crazy.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. Well, thank you for reminding us about your pattern and bringing it to our attention. We have it available as a digital download on our website, so we hope you check it out. And be sure to check back in with us over the next few weeks. We do have more projects coming your way, lots more ideas, and some really fun stuff coming up. So thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye. Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years.